Hello, my name's Pam Chalette, and this is my daughter, Abby.
And we are taking a video because it's Tube Feed Awareness Month.
Yes, it's Tube Feeding Awareness Month.
So Abby is tube fed. Can you give us a little spiel about why?
So, when Abby was born, she was having a really difficult time feeding, and after about 2 months of poor weight gain and some sketchy episodes feeding, we discovered that she was actually aspirating all of her food.
What does it mean to aspirate?
So when you aspirate, that means that whatever you have swallowed goes into your lungs instead of into your stomach. So when somebody says that it goes down the wrong pipe, all of Abby's food was literally going down the wrong pipe. So Abby was recently diagnosed with a rare genetic condition, and she has since started feeding a little bit with the help of some different kinds of therapies. And so she received a G-tube a little over a year ago. This is her twin, Judy, who's extra good at feeding. And so we've had the G-tube for about a year. At first it was a little scary, but it actually makes life fairly easy, especially when they're sick, because you can just tube feed them Pedialyte and you don't have to worry about them like throwing it back up. They might throw it back up, but it's not as bad. Okay, you sit there, we'll get your feeding. So this is the feeding machine. We have the Interalite Infinity, and it's pretty easy. You'll see on the Tube Feeding Awareness page that their logo is actually an extension. And so this is the extension, and you have to excuse Abby. She just ate, and she needs a nap. But this is where it locks in. So you lock it in, and you swing it around. Unclip it. And the biggest thing while your child is having a tube feeding is to make sure they're being orally stimulated in some way. So some kind of pacifier or food or
Why is that important?
So they associate having something in their stomach with something in their mouth, so they can make that connection of, oh, I need to have something in my mouth in order to have something in my stomach. No, we're just mad. So this is the tube feeding machine. So we have our rate and our dose, and we basically just plug her in and turn it on.
What do rate and dose mean?
So rate is the... You should just... No, you don't want that. Okay. So rate is the amount that they're going to get over a certain period of time. So the dose, so Abby gets 150 mLs over 20 minutes. So the rate is the amount of flow that she gets at one time. And that's just what that means. Oh, Abby. Abby's not happy today. Okay, and sometimes it's easiest just to snuggle and love your baby while they're eating. And this is actually a really big deal when you have a young infant that's eating. So if you think about like a non-tube fed baby, they're held either breastfeeding or bottle feeding. And so when you have a tube fed baby, it's really important to hold them while they're eating so they can make that connection to you as their parent. And then it's also just oral stimulation while they're getting a tube feeding is just very, very important. Whether it's a pacifier or they chew on a toothbrush or they, you know, if they can handle food while they're eating, have them eat. a little bit while they're feeding, so.
What food does she get through the tube?
So Abby gets right now she's getting baby formula, just some Enfamil Gentle Ease, and then in a couple months she'll switch over to a big girl formula. So I have no idea what that will be, but it'll be something that'll have a little more calorie to it for a toddler.
How has it been for your other kids with Abby tube feeding?
So at first, my husband and I were very much like, if you touch the pole, it's going to be the longest time out of your life. But we kind of just made it an everyday part of our life. So when Abby was getting a tube feeding and it was dinner time, she would just sit at the table and have her feeding with us while we ate dinner. So they're so young, it's just become a normal part of their life. The newest thing is that we have to keep her twin from pulling on her cord while she's eating, so we just have to watch that. But then my 4-year-old, he'll turn off the machine for us when she's done eating, and he can tell tell people all about Abby's tube.
What advice would you give parents who are considering tube feedings for their kids?
It's scary at first, but it's so worth it. You know, because like we have this idea, you know, kids need to be fed through their mouth, and if something's wrong with our baby and they're not eating enough, we must be doing something wrong. But in reality, they could just be either behind or have another issue. And so it's scary at first, but it makes such a difference in the long run. I know with Abby, when she got her G-tube, we immediately saw like increased energy. She started growing, she started meeting some milestones, and she was honestly just a happier baby. And just because they're on the G-tube for now doesn't mean that they won't be able to learn to eat and wean off of it later. Like, for some kids, this will be their whole life, but for some kids, it won't.
Who helps the process of deciding rates and tube feedings and oral feeds?
So you'll work with a nutritionist and probably a gastroenterologist, and then a speech therapist or a feeding therapist.
What kind of support is out there for parents of tube-fed babies?
Well, there's the tube feeding awareness group. Really, I think the biggest thing you can do to build a support system for yourself is make sure that like the people around you are comfortable with tube feeding, and they know that it's not scary, because it can seem very scary. And just work with your therapists and work with the people around you to help them be comfortable with it, and you'll have a good support system.
Cool. Thanks, Pam.
Uh-huh.